Good morning, grade 6. Today is March 23, 2020, and this is the continuation of our topic about the skeleton system. So let's start. What are the characteristics of bones? When we are referring about characteristic, we will discuss the features of the bones. Here, the word skeleton, it comes from a Greek word means a dried body. But actually, when we are talking about dried body, meaning it's dead. But in reality, bone is not dead because bone is a complex living structure. Complex means it has many parts. Bones is growing, developing, and repairing itself. Now, bones are also strong and lightweight. Our bone is stronger than the steel, and then it is light. Okay, when it comes to weight, it's lighter. I will also discuss here the parts of the bone. The three major parts of the bone is compact bone, which is the hard part of our bone, the spongy bone, and then the marrow. Okay, I will explain the meaning of this one here in this illustration. So the longest bone in our body is in femur. You can see femur in your leg, your type here in your leg. Okay. So if you try to open your bone, or if you have a bone fracture, or if your bone is broken, if you try to look at the part inside, this is the major part. Compact bone is the hardest part of our bone. It's hard and dense, and then it has canal with blood vessel. And then the next part is the spongy bone. Okay, spongy bone is here. It is also light and then full of spaces that contain red marrow. It has a spaces so that red blood cells can pass through it. It says here that you can see bone marrow in the spongy. Now here, red bone marrow is responsible for producing red blood cells. Yes, that is true. Our red blood cell is producing here. So it is just like a factory of red blood cell inside our bone. And then the next to that one, this yellow part is called the yellow bone marrow. This is responsible for storing fats in our bone. And then the thin layer, the thin outer covering of our bone is called the outer membrane. So that is the major parts of our bone. Okay, so if you try to look at the bone of human inside, so the yellow one is here, if you try to cut the bone, so this is the yellow bone marrow, and then this is the red bone marrow. Yellow bone marrow stores the fat, so that is in the middle, and then red bone marrow is responsible for making red blood cells in our body. Okay, now for further understanding of parts of the bone, let's watch this short video.
Bones. What happens when you break a bone? A broken bone is called a fracture. A fracture may be open, where the broken bone sticks out through the skin, or closed, where the skin is not broken. If it is thought you may have a broken bone, an X-ray which shows a picture of the bones under the skin will be taken. The bone may then need pins to hold it together, or a plaster cast to keep it in place until the break has mended. How many bones are there in your body? adults have 206 bones in their body, though a few people have an extra pair of ribs, giving those 208 bones. Your hands and feet have 110 bones between them, more than half of all the bones in your body. Babies are born with over 300 bones, but many of these fuse together as they grow. What are bones made of? Bones are made of proteins and minerals, which it gets from the food you eat. There are two types of bones. The outer hard layer of bone is called compact bone, which is made of tiny tubes called osteons. Inside the compact bone is a softer bone called spongy bone. Spongy bone contains bone marrow, which makes blood cells and stores fat. Which are the smallest and largest bones in your body? The smallest bone in your body is the stirrup bone or stapes inside your ear, which is only 2.5 millimeters long. The largest bone is the femur or thigh bone, which makes up 1/4 of your height. The femur is also the heaviest and strongest bone in your body. How do bones move? Bones can move because they have joints where two bones meet and muscles that are attached to them. Joints that have a lot of movement, such as your knee joint, are called synovial joints. The ends of the bones are covered with cartilage, which is smooth, and the joint secretes a fluid called synovial fluid, which together allows the bones to move without rubbing together. Muscles contract or get shorter and move the bones by pulling on them. How many pairs of ribs do you have? Most people have 12 pairs of ribs. Your ribs are long, curved bones that are attached to your spine at the back. In the front, some ribs are attached to your breastbone by cartilage. The top 7 pairs are called true ribs because they are attached to your breastbone. The next 3 pairs are connected to the lowest true rib by cartilage and are called false ribs. The last 2 pairs of ribs are called floating ribs because they do not reach round the front of your chest. Is a bone stronger than a steel bar? Bone is 5 times stronger than a steel bar of the same weight. Did you know that the human body has a tail? The coccyx is a very short, stubby bone at the base of the backbone. Luckily, we cannot see it on the outside.
Okay, so that is extra information about skeletal system. So I hope you learn a lot from that video. Okay, so let's proceed here. Another characteristic of the bones is the strength. So yes, that is true that our bones are stronger than steel. Okay, so here it says bone strength. Bone is both strong and lightweight. You know, in old time, in barbarian time, and usually when they win the war, they gather the bones and then they get the femur, the leg bone. You know why? Because that one is a good weapon in a war because that is stronger than the steel. Remember, most of the weapon before is from metal, steel, and iron. So instead of doing that, they use the bone of the human. okay, to use as a weapon before. And then that is a reward before if you get the femur of people. Okay, so that is bone strength. Here it says here, bones weight much lesser than those materials. In fact, only 20% of the average adult body weight is bone. So, example, if your weight is 70, so let's write here. Let's calculate. If your mass is 70 kilogram, okay, so 20% of that one, so 0.20 is my bone mass. Okay, if you try to calculate that one, okay, so 70 times 0.20, so that is 1.4. Okay, so that is 1.4 of my mass is bones. Okay, because here 20% of our entire body mass is bones. Because our mass contains many components like fats, water, then the bones. Okay, so that is how heavy our bones inside our body. So our bones is just 1.4. Oh, example, if your mass is 70 kilogram, multiply it with 0.20, your bone mass is just 1.4. You can try on your own, calculate your mass and multiply it by 0.20. Okay, that is the bone mass of your body. Here it says here, bone feels as hard as a rock because it is made up of tightly packed minerals, mainly phosphorus and calcium. Okay, you can find calcium in milk, yogurt, any dairy product, and meat. So those minerals could make your bone even more stronger. Okay, so another characteristic of bone is our bone is growing. Because bone are alive, they form new bone tissue as you grow. Remember that the bones are developing. When we are young, when we are baby, we have 300 bones, but that is just fused. Like the bones in our backbone, some of the bones are just fused. Your body are growing longer now, making you taller. Even other are fully grown. Bones tissue continues to form. For example, every time you play soccer or basketball, some of your bones absorb force on your weight. They respond by making new bone tissue. New bone tissue are also formed when our bone is break. Remember, when some of the people when they have a fracture, okay, the doctor just put a cast and then wait until the time until the bone is mend or becomes okay. So meaning, even though it is fractured, it is healing on its own because our bone is producing red blood cells. It is still growing. Okay, so but of course in a certain age, not in all time age. Okay, so that is the evidence that bone is growing. So I will continue this topic in the next part.